Good morning. We are going to do a science lesson today on food webs. So we're going to be talking about actually food chains and food webs all week. And today we're going to begin looking at what that looks like. In nature, we have talked about different relationships between organisms. We've got relationships that are symbiotic, like parasitism, where one organism is really helped, the other one is hurt. We also have relationships that are like competition, where two organisms are fighting, again, not necessarily fighting, but they're struggling for the exact same resources. That's competition. And we've heard about other relationships between in a community or a population or a full ecosystem. So food chains are when we've got multiple organisms that are eating each other, and they need to have that same system within the food chain. Every one of them really needs to be there. They have a purpose in order for the whole ecosystem to really run smoothly. And if there are changes, it really throws off the balance of the ecosystem, which is something we're going to be learning about in the next few weeks. What happens when something is off in a part of a food chain? Or if something, one of the abiotic factors is a little different, the amount of rain, for example, or if the temperature changes, what happens? So today we're going to read from our Delta Reader book, which is in Bright Thinker. So you are always welcome to look there afterwards. I highly encourage you to do that. I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like to get to the Delta Reader. Okay, so in your science folder, if you go to Ecosystems Reader is what we're reading. And if you click Ecosystems Reader, it takes you to this link. I've gotten to our specific page already, but it's just going to take you to the front of the book, and you can zoom in. That's what I've just done. Zoom in. I know it looks very small here, but I think all of you have like a touchpad on your computer so that you can get a little closer. So it says ecologists. Now, ecologists study ecosystems. That ology part of it comes from a Greek word meaning word. And it's someone who studies is the meaning of that ology part. They study ecosystems. They look at how energy moves from one living thing to another in a community. Living things get energy from their food. Do you remember where energy comes from? The original source of it is from the sun. So sunlight gets captured by the plant that uses that energy in the process of photosynthesis to make its food, and then the animal that eats it gets a transfer of energy. That's this process of a food chain of energy being passed on from one to the other. Now, a food chain is a series of organisms that depend on one another for food. A food chain diagram shows the path that the energy in food takes as it is passed from one organism to another. Most communities have many different food chains. Here is an example of a food chain in a freshwater community. Actually, let's take a look at the reading based off of it first. It says, let's look at one food chain in a freshwater community, which is what the pictures are below. A water plant gets energy from sunlight. The plant uses the energy to make its own food. Suppose that a snail, and other things might eat this plant, but imagine it's a snail that eats the plant next. The energy stored in that plant goes into the snail now. Next, what if a fish eats that snail, and then the fish gets the energy? Finally, a heron, which is a type of bird, maybe that eats the fish. Where did the energy in the heron's food first come from? The answer is the sun. The sun is where the energy originates for all of these animals and plants. The energy is moved from the sun to the plant, then the plant to an animal, and then that animal to another animal that eats it. The sun is the energy source for almost all food chains. Now, we have some food chains that are longer or shorter than others. Also, we have some animals that eat multiple organisms. So they might be part of different food chains. But here's an example of the one that we were just hearing about. All right, so there's the sun, which gives its energy to water plants, for example. Water plants use energy from sunlight to make their own food. Here's a snail that gets its energy to live and grow by eating plants. It is, do you remember the word for it? If it is a plant eater, an herbivore. Good job. Using one of the spelling words we've had, herb. So we think to spell herbivore. Now the snail is eaten by a fish. Now the fish gets its energy to live and grow by eating that snail, but the energy is still coming from the sun. The same energy getting passed on. Final step, a heron. This is a heron. It gets its energy to live and grow by eating the fish. So the energy that we have comes from what we eat. Now we as humans eat meat and vegetables, even though some people choose to be only vegetarians. But what does that make us? Omnivores. We're getting our energy either directly from a plant. If you have a salad, for example, that salad, there's energy from the sun in the lettuce or spinach, whatever it is. Now, if you're eating meat like chicken, that chicken gets its energy from the plant that it ate. And that gets its energy from the sun. So sometimes the food chain's a little bit longer. If we're eating directly plants, it's a pretty short food chain because it just goes from the sun to the plant to us who eat it. But if there is an animal mixed in, then that animal is possibly eating another animal which eats that plant. So it's a longer chain. Okay, so that's food chains. We are going to be writing about this in our notes. And that is all for the video today. You'll have some questions to answer after this video is over. I will talk to you all later. And let me stop presenting. Bye.